Hi everyone, my name is Austin, and for my first review of 2023, I'm going to review Castaway, directed by Robert Zemeckis and starring Tom Hanks. So without further ado, let's talk about it. The plot for Castaway is as follows. This is the story of Chuck Nolan, a FedEx employee who travels the world dealing with certain problems at various depots. He and his girlfriend, Kelly Frears, want to get married, but Chuck's busy schedule ensures that never happens. During the flight to Malaysia to tend to an issue over at a FedEx location, the cargo plane Chuck is on ends up in a violent storm, which crashes into the Pacific Ocean. Upon arriving on a deserted island, so no cannibals or gorillas to do battle with, and finding that he's the only survivor of the crash, Chuck must find ways to survive on the island, keep himself sane, and of course, find a way home. Because that island does not have a Taco Bell, a Walmart, or even a Best Western. It's uninhabited, and you gotta survive by any means necessary. The plot is very simple. A man ends up on an island, he needs to survive, no cannibals, no zombies, no sign of the predator, and if you're expecting some redhead named Reese to show up and talk about my balls, go ask Kevin Smith to get me on board his next movie, and I'll have her play a character along with this guy. But it's effective, and with how the movie goes, you definitely want to see how it ends because it's an experience you won't want to miss. Now, let's get to the production side of things. Here is a clip from a 2017 Actors Roundtable, courtesy of The Hollywood Reporter, where Tom Hanks talks about Castaway.
I made this one movie, Castaway, because I wanted to examine the concept of 4 years of hopelessness in which you have none of the requirements for living, which is food, water, shelter, fire, and company. But it took us 6 years in order to put together the alliance that would actually examine that the way it was. And I only had a third of it, and Bill Broyles only had a third of it, so we had 2/3 of this examined theme, and then nothing happened until Bob Zemeckis comes along and provided that other third. That's the stuff that ends up...
What do you mean you only had a third of it?
Well, I had that original idea. I said a guy, I was reading an article about FedEx, and I realized that 747s filled with packages fly across the Pacific 3 times a day, and they're filled with nothing but packages. And I just thought, what happens if that goes down?
Yeah, don't expect to see too many interview clips pop up here and there. It's only for when I feel that showcasing what the interview was is more appropriate than simply me just quoting the thing word for word from something I typed up in a Google document, and something like that. Anyway, moving to the subject of filming, it wasn't done in chronological order, beginning on January 18, 1999, before freezing production 2 months out of the fact, for which actor Tom Hanks gained 50 pounds to make the transformation of his character more apparent. Filming soon continued on April 3, 2000, before finishing the following month, for which Hanks not only lost the weight, but also grew his hair and beard out to look like he had been on the island for a good period of time, while Robert Zemeckis filmed What Lies Beneath during the year-long absence. During production, Hanks nearly died upon sustaining an infected cut on his leg, requiring surgery upon being rushed to a hospital, where he stayed for 3 days while production took a 3-week break for the actor to recover. The film was shot on Monariki, one of the Mamanuca Islands in Fiji, which is where I get all my water from, and is in a subgroup of the Mamanuca archipelago, which is located off the coast of Biti Ledu, with the biggest of Fiji's islands. To say the island soon became a tourist attraction upon the film's release. Some could even say the same thing about the Arlington Ranch in the Texas Panhandle, which is just south of the city of Canadian Texas. Yeah, I know, weird name considering Canada and Texas are nowhere near each other, but whatever. Which is where the film opens and closes. One last thing to note is that when Chuck returns to civilization, Kelly identifies the island he was on as being 600 miles or 970 kilometers south of the Cook Islands, even though in reality, there's no such land between the southernmost Cook Islands of Pangaea and Antarctica. Why is this important? Because geography, that's why. Now then, let's move on. For the film's music, or lack thereof, it was composed by Robert Zemeckis' common collaborator, Alan Silvestri, whose work with the director dates back to 1984's Romancing the Stone, and for Castaway, he gained a Grammy Award in 2002. Something to note is that, for much of the movie, there's no score, and features a lot of creature sounds, typically insects or birds, while Chuck is on the island, which is meant to enhance the feeling of isolation, and the score doesn't kick in until Chuck escapes the island. There is, however, a Russian choral piece that shows up during the start of the film, which is a traditional Russian song called Polyushko Polye, or Oh My Field, which was written by Liv Nipper. And while it's not on the film's soundtrack, it can be found on various Red Army hymn compilations. Meanwhile, the official soundtrack CD, if you can even call it that, is more or less, say, an anthology of music pieces that Silvestri scored for Zemeckis leading up to Castaway, with the only track from the film being the end credits theme, while other songs heard in the film were songs by Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry and Charles Brown. And now, we move to the next segment. When it came to FedEx, they were initially hesitant to help with the movie due to how it involved one of their planes crashing. But as soon as they saw the story, they gave the okay for product placement, for which they paid nothing. The company provided usage of their facilities, with such locations in Los Angeles, Memphis, and Moscow, as well as airplanes, trucks, uniforms, and logistical support, while then FedEx CEO and current executive chairman Frederick W. Smith had a cameo during the scene in which Chuck is welcomed home. When it came to good old Wilson, the volleyball, which serves as Chuck's best bud and the only real companion during his 4 years alone on the island, it was created by screenwriter William Broyles Jr., whose work includes Apollo 13, Entrapment, The Polar Express, Jarhead, and Flights of Our Fathers, who, when researching for the film, consulted professional survival experts and spent 1 week on an isolated beach in the Gulf of California, which required him to go and find food and water and get himself some shelter. During his tenure on the island, a volleyball washed up on the shore, akin to Nathan Drake, which provided Broyles the idea for Wilson, who, aside from being named after the manufacturer Wilson Sporting Goods, and in terms of the screenwriting side of things, allows dialogue to happen in a one-person situation believably. There was a rumor that one of the Wilson prop volleyballs was sold at an auction for a total of $18,500 to former FedEx office CEO Ken May, but as far as I'm aware, this has been debunked. Meanwhile, when the film was set to release, Wilson launched its own promotion campaign based on its products, co-starring Tom Hanks, and even manufactured a volleyball that imitated the bloodied handprint on one side, where it was sold for a limited time for when the movie hit theaters, and as of 2023, is still sold on the company's website. And now, let's go to the final verdict. Castaway is one of the greatest movies of all time. There's nothing more I can say here. It's a fantastic film that has really helped me through these past couple months, and I'm really glad I finally saw it all the way through, having mostly seen bits and pieces of it here and there, including the ending. So, what is it about this film that's so amazing? Well, there's Tom Hanks' performance for one thing. Tom Hanks is an actor who can really play any character you give him, and he'll automatically be seen as incredibly likable and charming. Whether he's playing a young boy who becomes an adult upon wishing upon a Zoltar machine, a none too bright but nevertheless lovable man with the running speed of Sonic the Hedgehog, a gay lawyer who sues his former law firm for wrongful termination over his AIDS diagnosis, a toy sheriff, a real-life astronaut, and even real-life figures like Walt Disney and Mr. Rogers, Tom Hanks is a national treasure and deserves to be preserved. And in Castaway, he gives one of the best performances of his career as Chuck Noll, a FedEx employee whose initial problems are based on his job and schedule, but soon become a lot different as soon as his plane crashes and he ends up on an island that's about as inhabited as the servers for Marvel's Avengers, and it has no Burger Kings in sight, no Target stores, and no 5-star hotels sitting on every block. Hanks makes Chuck very likable, as you want to see him get off the island, and the fact that he gained weight, lost it, and then grew his beard and hair out, resembling a caveman to give the feeling of spending 4 years on the island shows that he took the movie seriously. Plus, throughout the whole movie, as soon as Chuck is on the island, it is Tom Hanks and Tom Hanks alone. His performance showcases the vulnerabilities of his character, as Chuck is isolated from the rest of the world and is forced to find food, water, and shelter all by himself. And I've gotta say, he really knows how to adapt to the environment around him. Examples include using stones to create tools in order to open a coconut, as it's the only natural food source on the island, finding rainwater on leaves, and using coconut shells in order to hold water inside of them, a method he also uses when he leaves the island. He also uses some leftover FedEx packages from the crash in interesting ways, using ice skates as a means for an axe, as well as using one to deal with a root canal, which is never something you want on a deserted island, using the tape inside a bunch of video cassettes to hold the raft together, and probably the most useful item Chuck utilizes, a volleyball named Wilson, which I'm going to say is the most appropriate usage of said sporting item. Unless your name is Jennifer Mosley and you're completely dressed and it's done in a gym, the purpose of a volleyball is not to play volleyball, as this will happen, but instead it is used while on a deserted island in order to have someone to talk to, because all you have is you and you alone. So really, that volleyball is your only friend in the situation. Same goes for the Pikachu plushie and the bust of Charles Bronson. Wilson basically functions as Chuck's companion throughout the course of the film and allows for dialogue to happen, in what would otherwise be a very quiet film based solely on facial expressions and body language. Not to mention, keeps Chuck from going the full Jack Torrance and completely losing his Scheissmeister. Again, Hanks makes it believable due to his commitment to the film, and when Wilson washes away, it feels like we all just lost a very important friend, and much like Chuck, all we can do is cry. I also like how Chuck's reason for wanting to get off the island change, as when he ends up on the island, he wants to get off the island so he can see his girlfriend again, as that's what keeps him going. But as the years go on and Chuck spends more time on the island, it becomes more about wanting to survive and keep on going, because in the end, he was going to die there regardless, even if he didn't get off the island or die trying. And when he gets back to civilization, he finds that he was legally declared dead and that his fiancée Kelly has moved on and has a family now, despite still having feelings for him. But even with that, he still continues to go on, because that's what he's got to do, and Tom Hanks handles this effortlessly, no questions asked. But while Tom Hanks may be the big star here, there are still some good performances from actors who also show up in the movie, such as Helen Hunt as Kelly, Chuck's girlfriend. When we first see her, is hoping to become a doctor and tie the knot with him, only for things to come to a halt when Chuck's plane crashes and he is presumed dead. By the time we see her, she has gotten married, has a daughter, and is mostly relegated to the role of a housewife. And Hunt makes Kelly an endearing character, as she's Chuck's initial reason for wanting to get off the island in the first place. You get the feeling that she's in love with him, and when we see her again, she's still in love with him, but because of the life she lives now, she can't be with Chuck, making it also very sad. Plus, Nick Searcy is pretty good as Chuck's friend Stan, and the late Laurie White is alright as Bettina Peterson, the woman who sends the package with the wings during the beginning of the film, and is another reason for Chuck wanting to get off the island, as it was the only package he didn't use when trying to find tools for survival. As for what's in the box, I'll leave that up for discussion. But aside from the performances, the movie also boasts great cinematography, being filmed by Don Burgess, who's worked on plenty of Robert Zemeckis' other movies, starting with Forrest Gump in 1994. It feels dynamic and fluid, and the island, it looks beautiful and serene, yet also captures the deserted nature of it, with every shot being carefully placed and always feeling like that one perfect shot. Burgess' cinematography is fantastic, although it would be nice if Robert Zemeckis did another film with Dean Cundey as a cinematographer, having not done a film for the director since Death Becomes Her in 1992. It should also be noted that this is Zemeckis' final film to be edited by Arthur Schmidt, having edited most of the director's movies starting with Back to the Future, and for what it's worth, it's not bad, with the plane crash and scenes where Chuck braves the waves being pretty good. And lastly, the sound design is brilliant. Throughout the whole movie, there is no music, only the sounds of the wind, the ocean, and the various animals heard on the island, which helps to amplify the feeling of loneliness on the island, putting us in Chuck's position throughout and adding a sense of realism to the situation. It's all diegetic, feeling natural and isolated, and something that is very real when on a deserted island. And when we do get some music, it's a beautiful, melancholic, and haunting piece courtesy of Alan Silvestri, and it's only heard when Chuck gets off the island, when Wilson washes away, when Chuck and Kelly reunite, and for when the credits roll. For one piece of music that is only heard toward the end, it's phenomenal, and also shows that if you need someone who's as good as both John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith, Alan Silvestri is your man, and he's a good man at that. If there were any problems I had with the film, I'd say that I have no problems with the film, which is a huge problem, as someone watching this video will accuse me of being too soft on every movie and what I watch, and that I need to be harder on every movie I watch because that's how movie reviews work. And to that I say, sir,
you need to shut the fuck up!
Overall, Castaway is a masterpiece, and one film I'm never going to forget anytime soon. Castaway, in case you couldn't tell, was a huge success, which when released on December 22nd, 2000 during the Christmas weekend, surpassed Patch Adams in terms of the highest Christmas opening weekend, and even reached number 1 at the box office, beating out another Helen Hunt film in the form of What Women Want. It kept on grossing money, earning a total of $429.6 million against its $9 million budget, and became the 3rd highest grossing movie of 2000, just behind Gladiator and Mission Impossible 2. Add to the fact that What Lies Beneath, the film that Robert Zemeckis did during Castaway's halt of production, was the 10th highest grossing movie that year, you could tell that both the director was sleeping pretty well, knowing that both films were garnering plenty of success. Castaway also gained positive reviews from critics, who praised the screenplay and Tom Hanks' performance, with the most positive review coming from Mirio Togata, who during his show with Mimi Tachikawa, Dizzy Devil, and Jon Stewart declared it everything the 1980 version of The Blue Lagoon should have been, and ranked it number 2 on his best of list, being beaten out by Almost Famous. The movie gained Oscar nominations for Best Sound and Best Actor for Tom Hanks, Wilson won Best Inanimate Object at the 6th Annual Critics' Choice Awards. Tom Hanks won a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Motion Pictures for Drama. And as I mentioned, Alan Silvestri won a Grammy for Castaway's ending theme. It was even parodied in a FedEx commercial during Super Bowl 37, where Chuck returns the package to the sender, and when he opens the box, it contains stuff Chuck probably could have used on the island, or as this Chuck calls it, silly stuff, including a satellite phone, a GPS locator, a fishing rod, a water purifier, and some seeds. Media executive Lloyd Braun, who at the time worked at ABC Studios, had the idea for a Castaway-style TV show during a dinner party in 2003, to which Tom Sherman pitched the idea for the series, but it never materialized. It eventually evolved into another series, starting out as Nowhere, and eventually gaining the name that most people know as Lost. It's been referenced in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The band Fish showed a clip of the film on the Jumbotron at Madison Square Garden to introduce their song Wilson during New Year's Eve 2002. The main character in Don't Starve is named after Wilson the volleyball. Kelly Time, a song by Owl City, references the film through Wilson's perspective. And on April 15th of last year, Tom Hanks at the Progressive Field threw the ceremonial first pitch at the Cleveland Guardians home opener, accompanied by a replica of Wilson. So, yeah, Castaway has left quite an impact on the world, and it's left quite an impact on me. Castaway is one of the best movies I've seen in a while, and it came out in 2000. For something that came out 23 years ago, in a time period in which the whole world was believed that that everything was going to collapse on itself, the whole world was going to end, the computer systems were going to pretty much explode, and everyone believed that we were going to be in some Mad Max style dystopia, it still holds up. Like, this film, I give it my highest recommendation. Whether you decide to pick it up on this 2-disc special edition DVD here, or you decide to pick it up on Blu-ray, it's a film that you have got to see. Maybe once, but you've got to see it. It's fantastic. Tom Hanks gives one of the best performances of his career. The cinematography is top-notch. The sound design is amazing. The feeling of isolation is very real. And the way it captures how people try to survive on the island is pretty good as well. It's a fantastic film, and by the time you're done, you feel satisfied. It's a film that you've got to see at least once. If you don't watch it, I'm giving you an F on your assignment, and you will and I'm putting it on report cards. So you better watch this movie, or you are flunking this class. Anyway. So with that, I would like to give out a huge tribute, give you a huge shout out to some of the biggest fans of Robert Zemeckis' films that you may not have known were fans of Robert Zemeckis' films. So without further ado, let's get on with it.
You know you have to
And with that, this concludes my review of Castaway. I hope you enjoyed it, found it entertaining, educational, and made you want to seek out this movie. You better go seek out this movie, or else you get an F. I'm not afraid of failing you. So with that, I will catch you later. I'll see you next time.